Sir, since you're attacking us, can you give us a question? No, Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect, since you are attacking our news organization,
not
can
you.
you give us a chance?
Your organization
You are
is
attacking
terrible.
our news organization.
Your organization
Can you
is
give us a
terrible.
chance
Let's
to ask
go.
a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir, can you
Quiet.
state,
Quiet.
Mr. President-elect,
Go ahead.
can you state
She's asking a
categorically,
question.
Mr.
Don't be
President-elect, can you give us a question?
be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you
No,
give
I'm
us a
not gonna give you
question?
I'm not going to give you a
Can you
question.
can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
Go ahead.
can you state categorically that nobody? No, Mr. President-elect, that's not
Go ahead.
appropriate.
This is Speaking Freely, and I'm Floyd Abrams. And you've just seen an example of the relationship between Donald Trump and CNN. And that relationship, if there ever was one, is at least strained, I would guess, even more by the fact that Mr. Trump has now filed a $475 million, that was the claim, libel suit against CNN. And that's what I want to talk about with you today. What is it that Trump says CNN did wrong? Well, what does he say they got false and therefore could allow a libel suit? It's a 29-page complaint filed in federal court in Florida. It basically complains about a lot of stuff, but most of all that CNN repeatedly has referred to the big lie, the words, the big lie, over and over again when talking about Donald Trump. And that it has gone so far as to use the name Hitler a number of times in talking in one way or the other about the big lie. Hitler's administration, so to speak, was the one under Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister, that began with that notion. And so we have a complaint that seeks a lot of money. It's a libel case. And what I want to address with you today is just what sort of libel case is it? Let me start at the beginning. And the beginning isn't libel law. The beginning is America, freedom of speech. We have a long history in this country of people saying tough things about people in power or people who want power. Tough things, sometimes nasty things, sometimes even abusive things. And as a generality, we protect that. We protect political speech, maybe more than anything else. And we protect commentary, the expression of views and the like about people in or who are seeking power, at least as much as anything else. And I would say probably more than anything else. So what shall we make of Donald Trump's complaint? For one thing, as a legal matter, although it says that in libel cases brought by public officials or public figures, what has to be proved, it's called actual malice. The complaint goes beyond that. Actual malice, by the way, was a poor choice of words by the Supreme Court. I think they would agree to that now. But what it means is if a public person, a public figure, a Donald Trump, sues for libel, he has to show that what was said about him was false, but beyond false, was either knowingly false, it was a lie, they knew it wasn't true, or said with what the Supreme Court has said is a high degree of awareness of probable falsity. So you either have to be lying or you have to be all but lying. You say something, it's a factual statement, and it's untrue, and you have a high degree of awareness that it's probably untrue. The problem with Trump's lawsuit starts with the fact that libel suits are about false statements of fact and not opinion. And this is a lawsuit about what is obviously an expression of opinion, phrased different ways. But what he objects to most is not a statement of fact, but of CNN's opinion or someone on CNN's opinion of how to characterize Mr. Trump personally or conduct of Mr. Trump. And that's true with respect to just about everything that Trump objects to most in whatever CNN has put on. So that's the area that we're in. When CNN, of course, never said Trump was Hitler. What CNN said, and said again and again in more than one broadcast, was that what Trump was engaging in was, quote, the big lie, a phrase we've all heard, and the big lie referring to the proposition that Trump says he won the election, and he didn't. Trump says there was fraud, which led him to no longer be president, and it's not. So that's the beginning of it. Again, the great Supreme Court case, 1964 case of New York Times against Sullivan, was the case in which the Supreme Court said, when you write about or talk about a public person, and I'm adding now, of course, Donald Trump included in that, no liability unless what you say is a false statement of fact or a statement of fact that you know or suspect isn't true. These aren't statements of fact. What he objects to are characterizations. What he objects to is CNN expressing in its voice or the voice of CNN speakers, journalists, and the like, that what Trump is saying was untrue, inaccurate, or the like. That when Trump talks about the election count being fraudulent, that CNN, and not CNN alone, refers to, or the individuals on CNN at issue here, referring to that as the big lie, and attaching that as well to where the notion of the big lie came from, Hitler's Germany back when. So no libel suit can win, none, if it is about a statement of pure opinion rather than a false statement of fact. So-and-so had a pistol, shot the pistol shot resulted in someone's death. That's true or false. It's not an opinion, can be an opinion sometimes, but it's generally a statement of fact. And what Trump is objecting to, most of all and almost exclusively, aren't any alleged misstatements of fact, but an opinion phrased toughly to which he objects. And the libel law doesn't exist to give protection in that sort of situation. Beyond that, even if you treated this as a statement of fact, well, what do you have to show? You'd have to show that CNN knew or suspected what it was saying wasn't true. And my reaction to that is that there's not going to be any basis for saying that whatever else, whatever other quarrel, whatever other disagreement he has with CNN, it's not going to be at the end of the day, well, they didn't really believe what they were saying. It's going to be they were wrong, they were unfair, they were unjust, etc. And that's not the stuff of libel. Now, there's a suggestion in the complaint that case I mentioned a few minutes ago, New York Times against Sullivan, the case which said when you attack or criticize a public figure like Donald Trump, no liability unless you know what you're saying isn't true or you suspect it isn't true. There's a tone, and sometimes a little more than that, in the complaint that the Supreme Court ought to overrule that opinion. There are already, we know, 3 members of the 9-person Supreme Court who have said just that. 3 members have already said they think the court ought to reconsider, and they certainly have indicated that they think it should overrule that case. I don't think the votes are likely there for that, but we don't know. They need only 4 votes, which is to say, one more person to say, I think we should reconsider New York Times versus Sullivan, for them to do it. And only 2 more to reverse it, to overrule would be the legal word. No one knows what the court will eventually do on that. My own guess, my own judgment is that there are not only the 3 more liberal members of the court who would certainly vote to continue with that level of protection for the press that's in the New York Times versus Sullivan case. But I think the Chief Justice, Justice Roberts, would be most unlikely to join with the more conservative members on this. And if I had to guess, and it's a guess, I think Justice Kavanaugh, too, who, when he was a judge in the lower courts, wrote more than one opinion applying New York Times versus Sullivan with that requirement in it, in an enthusiastic way, and a way that suggests that he more than likely agrees with it. We don't know that. Would this be the case that if it's dismissed, as I suspect it will be, and at the lower court levels, that the Supreme Court might take a case of Donald Trump against CNN? I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is what I said earlier. The reason that they wouldn't take it is that CNN doesn't need New York Times versus Sullivan to win this case. If I'm right, that what this case is basically about is not statements of fact about Trump, but CNN's take, CNN's conclusion, the views of those journalists who were speaking on TV, on cable, and the like with respect to Trump, is that those would be characterized as statements of opinion rather than fact. And if that's true, that's the end of it. Again, the court has made clear many, many times, and they put it in a beautiful way, there's no such thing as a false opinion. Let me say it again. There's no such thing as a false opinion. People can agree or disagree about matters of opinion. Libel law exists for the purpose of allowing someone about whom false facts have been uttered to have some sort of remedy. So I don't think it's that sort of case. And I don't think that the case is going to go anywhere. I'll leave to others the question, why did he bring the case? I will say, do I think he's really angry? Yeah, I do think he's angry. But that does not provide a basis for bringing a lawsuit. And in the end, there's no sort of speech that we need to have more protected than speech about the Donald Trumps of the world. And by that, I don't mean adding in whatever I happen to think about Trump. I mean a former president. I mean someone who wants to be president again. I mean someone who has enormous power at this moment in the country. Commentary, the expression of views, the expression of opinion about people like that seem to me the most important of all sorts of speech for us to continue to protect and to protect across the board. So we'll see if I'm right about that. And I wish you all well. Thanks.